Oil and Water, Chibi Robo and Ziplash, Nintendo Directs in 2020. All these things don't mix well at all, and 2020 has marked the biggest gap between Nintendo Directs since 2016. I would say fans are almost as antsy as they were in 2016 for Nintendo news, but after noticing a few trends from Nintendo, I've come to the realization why there haven't been any Nintendo Directs, and it's not quite the answer you'd expect. Join me in this video to understand why we haven't had any Nintendo Directs this year, and what the future may hold for them. In case you're living under a rock, 1. I'm thankful you at least found my channel, and 2. Nintendo Directs are a video presentation announcing the latest news about upcoming Nintendo games, and stuff like that. They range from new information on upcoming games, DLC, and most importantly, new game announcements. These new game announcements are what make Nintendo Directs so hyped in the first place, and they're the heart and soul of a Nintendo Direct. But the thing is, we haven't seen a normal one since September of last year, and I would go as far to say the last great Direct we had was over a year ago during E3 2019. Nintendo Directs have been weird lately. Ever since September, we haven't seen any major game announcements in Directs. The big new first-party game in September was Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, and while it's a great game, it's a remake. And during the mini Direct we got Clubhouse games, which is probably good, but not a showstopper by any means. I've talked a bit about how Nintendo Directs have been pretty disappointing recently, but there's something important to bring up with the majority of the recent ones. Besides the mini Direct, most either focus on a franchise, a specific game, and of course, there was that notorious partner showcase. The fact of the matter is, Nintendo is fully capable of making a Direct. There's a common misconception that the current situation is the reason why Nintendo hasn't had a normal Direct, and that would be more believable if they didn't put together all kinds of different Directs. They might not be the kinds of Direct fans have been begging for, but they're still Directs nonetheless. But why haven't there been any full-on Directs if Nintendo is fully capable of making them? And after looking at Nintendo's upcoming lineup, the answer is quite simple. I want you to take a look at the games that Nintendo announced and mostly released this year after the world got crazy. We got Clubhouse games announced on March 26th and released on June 5th, a little over 2 months. Then we had Paper Mario the Origami King announced on May 14th and released July 17th. And now we have Pikmin 3 Deluxe announced on August 5th and planned for release on October 30th. And let me tell you, a port of a 7-year-old Wii U game is unlikely to be delayed. So what does this mean? Nintendo is announcing games historically sooner than ever before they're released. Usually games were announced between 5 months to a year before launch, with a few odd exceptions like Metroid Prime 4 being announced very early on, and they're usually announced with a time window first, and then a concrete release date a few months later. So why is Nintendo not having Directs? By having Directs, it's not really probable to announce games within a 2-month time frame. Nintendo usually has one big game every few months or so, and having a Direct would literally be mostly third-party stuff, and they'd announce 1 or 2 first-party titles. It's clear the current situation has impacted Nintendo greatly, and there's a possibility of delays if games are announced before they're close to going gold. A game usually goes gold around a month before release, and by the time games like Paper Mario the Origami King and Pikmin 3 or Deluxe are announced, they're pretty much done. Except Pikmin 3 has been done since 2013. Don't tell anyone the Wii U existed. Delays are okay to have, but from a marketing standpoint, consumers wouldn't like if every game got delayed. And considering what's going on if games were announced even 5 months in advance, the likelihood of delays is still very real. So essentially, Nintendo is waiting until games are 95% close to completion before announcing them, and that's why I think we haven't seen a Nintendo Direct, but shadow drops on Twitter. I will admit, I'm not a big fan of this strategy. Part of the fun of Nintendo Directs is the hype building up to them, but with these shadow drops, there's the initial, oh that's cool, but no build up. I think Nintendo should have a compromise where they announce that a game will be announced a few days before, and maybe hint at what it's going to be, and then reveal it. That way you'd get the best of both worlds. At this point, I really just want some transparency from Nintendo, and if my theory is correct, they should just say it. Because in the end, I think fans will be understanding. So there you have it. This is why I think we haven't seen a Direct this whole year. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments and keep calm and Dada on.